All right, today we're diving into a really powerful idea, something that comes from a series of lectures by Ayatollah Khomeini. We're talking about the greatest jihad, combat with the self. So let me ask you something. When you hear that word jihad, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, right, it's probably images of conflict, maybe even war. Well, the text we're looking at today says, hold on, that's not the full picture. In fact, it argues that the most important jihad, it's not fought on a battlefield out there in the world. Not at all. Okay, so if it's not out there, where is it? And that's exactly what we're getting into. The whole idea of the greatest jihad is that it's a battle fought completely within. And there's a specific name for this, Jihad al-Akbar. So what does that mean? Well, the text defines it as this deep internal struggle, right? It's about refining yourself, purifying your soul, and fighting against your own baser desires. It's literally a combat with yourself. But why is this internal battle so important, so crucial? Well, according to the text, without this inner work, even something as good as seeking knowledge can become, believe it or not, dangerous. And that leads us to this fascinating idea of knowledge being a double-edged sword. And check this out, the text gives us this really provocative quote to think about. Al-ilm huwa al-hijab al-Akbar. That translates to, knowledge is the greatest cover. Isn't that wild? The whole point is that knowledge, if your soul isn't refined, can actually become a veil, something that hides the truth from you instead of showing it to you. And you can really see this play out in the two types of scholars the text describes. It's a stark contrast. On one side, you've got the righteous scholar. This is the person whose piety and inner strength actually guides the whole community. But then you have the corrupt scholar. This person might have all the knowledge in the world, but they can end up perverting everything. The text even says their sin is more harmful to Islam than any other. And to really hammer this home, get this. The text mentions a narration that says 70 sins would be forgiven for an ignorant person before a scholar is forgiven for just one. I mean, wow. That just goes to show you the massive weight, the incredible responsibility that comes with having knowledge. And the consequences? They're described in some pretty intense terms. There's this quote that paints this incredibly vivid picture. It says, the people of hell will suffer from the stench of a scholar whose deeds didn't match their knowledge. You can almost feel that, right? It's such a powerful metaphor for how toxic unethical knowledge can be.
Okay, so if that's the problem, this danger of unrefined knowledge, what's the solution? And that's what's so great about this text. It doesn't just point out the problem, it actually gives us a roadmap. It lays out a path of self-reformation.
And it's pretty practical. The source breaks it down into 4 basic steps for moral reform. First, find a teacher of morals. You need guidance. Then it's about strengthening your own spiritual powers from the inside. Third, actively work on acquiring a noble character. Good manners. And finally, the most important part, purifying your intentions so that everything you do is to get closer to God. So, in this inner battle, who's the enemy? Well, the text calls them illnesses of the soul, and it lists them out, things like the love of the world, arrogance and conceit, jealousy, hypocrisy, and just plain old selfishness. These are the things you're really up against. And this isn't all just, abstract theory. The text connects it to real life. It points to the month of Ramadan as a perfect opportunity to really focus on this struggle. It's described as a time to get ready for the feast of Allah by doing this deep internal cleanup. Okay, but what's the end game here? After all of this struggle, all this self-refinement, where are you trying to get to? Well, the text describes the ultimate goal as reaching a place beyond the veils. And this veils metaphor is really beautiful. It's used to explain what stands between a person and spiritual truth. You have veils of darkness, which are pretty straightforward. That's when you're attached to the world for its own sake. But then there are also veils of light. This is when you use the world as a tool to point you towards God. The goal, though, is to move past even those. And you can really feel this yearning to see past the veils in a prayer that's quoted in the text. It's a plea, asking to have the vision of the heart enlightened, until the visions of the heart tear through the curtains of light and attach to the source of greatness. It's not just about seeing better, it's about connecting directly to the divine source. So, when you boil it all down, the ultimate goal of this greatest jihad isn't just about becoming a better person. It's way bigger than that. It's a journey toward what the source calls absolute perfection, a kind of reunion with the absolute and the infinite beauty of his divinity. And that really brings us full circle, back to that idea of veils. The whole journey is framed as tearing down these things that hide our true selves and our connection to something bigger. So that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about for ourselves. What are the veils in your life right now? What might be getting in the way of your own self-knowledge?